Welcome back to the WatchTower podcast, a new podcast brought to you by Tower Productions' new podcast network, the Towercast Network. And guess what, guys? Towercast Network is now live on Instagram. So we finally have an Instagram. We've been putting it off for much too long.
We didn't have an Instagram?
We didn't have an Instagram. I mean, we have a Tower Instagram, but not a Towercast Network Instagram.
Damn it, Austin.
All that podcasting goodness is now in one centralized place.
Yes, so that was always our goal. So you can now check out the Towercast Network on Instagram, all one word, Towercast Network, and that's where we're gonna
for all your social media needs.
Yeah, definitely. Exactly. And we all want to kind of like as Alao said, just have one centralized area where we can put the podcast promos, any announcements in regards to either this podcast, the WatchTower, or the Towercast podcast. Man, we've been getting some very exciting guests for both podcasts, but for Towercast, it's getting big, man. So if you haven't listened to it, check it out. As of today, actually, as of next week, we'll be having Alejandro Montoya Marin on the Towercast, which he was on Rebels Without a Crew.
Good episode.
Very cool episode. But anyways, we're talking about something very cool today on the WatchTower podcast. I want to introduce my co-host, John Eric Castro.
I stick my neck out for nobody.
There you go. Love it. Thank you for using a line from the film. We have Mr. Christian Yokomoto Medina, my other co-host.
Oh, hello, fellows and fellas.
We have Mr. Michael Delao, our trusty director producer on this podcast.
And here's to you, kid.
Thank you. I love it.
Getting back in it.
Last but not least, we have Mr. Austin Young, a little devastated because of the Cardinals score today on Sunday.
He's in dark arts right now.
Citizen Kane is better.
Right
he's back. He's in. All right.
Back.
I love this conversation. We're talking about the awesome, the legendary Casablanca, directed by Michael Curtiz. I'd argue that it's Michael Curtiz's best film. It's the one that he's remembered for, period. I mean, he did The Adventures of Robin Hood, and he did, the John Wayne picture, the Comancheros. He did a bunch of stuff, man, but Casablanca is the one that's the staple.
So why didn't he pick Ronald Reagan to star, man? I want to ask that.
In Casablanca?
Yeah, it was rumored that he was going to star.
They had a list, but here's... Okay, we'll get into that. But I want to talk a little bit about Casablanca. We're going to get into the legacy of it and everything, but I want to talk my personal experience of like the first instance, not even the first screening, but the first instance I saw that. I grew up in a little town kind of south of Dallas called Seagoville, which was kind of like a ghetto hood where you had Mexicans and African-American dudes just mingle with each other, and that was kind of our little gang. Anyways, if you lived in Seagoville and you wanted to go to the mall, you went to this mall called the Town East Mall in Mesquite, Texas.
Mesquite.
And when you walked into the mall, we used to go, my mom and I used to go to this little fruit smoothie place. And right next to the fruit smoothie place, they had a Hollywood memorabilia store. And I always thought, I always had to go in there for some reason. This was before I ever wanted to be a filmmaker. This was before I even dubbed myself an avid film fan. I just thought, man, I want to go in there for some reason. I'm attracted to that. So I would go into that store, and the two individuals that struck out the most, for whatever reason, I didn't know their names, I knew nothing about them, were Ingrid Bergman and Humphrey Bogart, the stars of Casablanca. And it's, naturally because there's Casablanca replicas hanging all over the walls. But there's a particular painting, and I forget the name of it. I should have researched it. There's a particular painting, and I'm sure you guys are familiar with it, of Humphrey Bogart, Elvis Presley, Marilyn Monroe, and James Dean. James Dean? Yeah, James Dean. Jimmy Dean, right, from Rebel Without a Cause. And it's like they're either all playing pool or they're all in a 50s diner. Yeah. And it's basically just commemorating them because they all died young, right? And Humphrey Bogart is in that.
What age did he die?
He died at 57. He died at 57.
The whole life.
I mean, but
James Dean when he was still young, dude.
Yeah, but I mean, Marilyn Monroe and Elvis were on the older side too.
I feel bad for Elvis though. His manager was a dick.
Yeah, they're making a film about him, I think.
Apparently, one of his last shows was here in El Paso.
Ooh. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He died at 42. Elvis died at 42. heart attack, I think. But anyways, I remember just being struck by Bogart and Bergman, and I never knew what that meant. I just thought, man, who are these people? Like, okay, the first thing you think as a kid is, it's like some it's I Love Lucy or some old TV show that's, it's black and white. Who cares?
Yeah.
But then I thought, no, these characters have to be bigger. Like, they're bigger. There's something's bigger. Their presence is bigger. And then I finally saw Casablanca. I saw it on the big screen. They brought it back for an anniversary at one of the theaters here in El Paso. And I instantly fell in love with the film. And then I got to see it a number of more times in film school after that, just because it's film school and you got to talk about that. But I knew I was right. There was a presence about them. And when you study that history in Hollywood, that age, the golden age of Hollywood, they were the ones. They were the actors of that era. But anyways, I'm obsessed with this film. It's my number, I think it's like my third or fourth on my top 10 list.
Today, like still till today?
Number three. It's number 3 today on my top 10 list, top 10 favorite films. So number 3 on my list. But what did you guys think, man? I know some of you saw it for the first time. I'd love to get your perspective. I don't know.
Well,
guys,
What do you want?
this is my second, kind of second and a half time.
Okay.
I remember as a kid, I kind of saw it on TV somewhere.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, it looks cool, but then I got distracted, right? I mean, I was a kid watching black and white film,
Sure.
If it wasn't Pedro Infante, I wasn't interested in black and white films.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And then once I got into college and started seeing all these Citizen Kane and stuff like that, I watched this one, and then I found it interesting. I found it a lot better than I thought it was going to be. And then for this, then I saw it again for this show, and I actually gotta say I found even more stuff that I don't even remember it from my other time. I was like, you know what? There's still some underlying facts, like underlying themes in the movie that you're like, I didn't catch this the other time. It's still rewatchable.
Yeah, definitely. I gotta ask Castro, man. I agree with you wholeheartedly, Okamoto. Every time I see it, initially I'm more attracted to the performances and to the story, but then you catch the historical value and significance of what they're talking about, and it's like, oh shit. But Castro, I feel like this is a very heavy, actor-heavy, performance-heavy film. I gotta ask you, and I know it's a different era, so I'm very curious on where you.
It is. I like Humphrey Gofart's transformation throughout the film. I like how he's kind of subtle at the beginning. You get how he was back then, and then towards the end of the film. But I know you hate to hear this, Carlos, but it's just like I love basketball, and I know you hate this analogy, but I'm not watching 1940s basketball because it's just slow. It takes a little bit of time for the story to kick in.
Sure.
And I appreciate it. I liked it. I like Humphrey Bogart's acting, but
Gophers.
Yeah, my bad.
Twice already.
Humphrey Gophers. Who?
But I don't know. It was kind of a struggle for me. I don't know.
I got you. I felt like the one that stood out as equally, because this Ingrid Bergman, this movie launched her career. Before this film, she was kind of just a B actress and kind of just supporting roles and stuff. But Casablanca really launched her career, and I felt like she was a standout in this picture. I liked her. And then all the supporting characters are just fun, man. They're good actors, and they're good little supporting roles. Like the owner of the Blue Parrot, the other club, the rival club. Mm-hmm. He's an interesting character, always wearing the hat. The bellhop hat, and then
Sam, the black dude, is pretty cool.
Sam, dude. Oh, Sam's character is just Dooley Wilson. Oh my gosh,
just a good heart, man.
Delao, I think in terms of cinematography, this is one of the best films in the 40s. I'm not going to say all time because obviously cinematography has evolved, but in the 40s, this is, I think, the most beautiful picture. I mean, Citizen Kane competes because Citizen Kane had camera movement, and it's legendary, and it's known for camera movement
and editing.
And editing. And so they pegged those two films compared to each other. If you're listening on this episode, by the way, we're going to be doing Mank pretty soon. So we'll be talking a lot more about Citizen Kane and Mank. So stay tuned for that episode. But I think in terms of cinematography, the richness the shots, they focused a lot on hero shots and backlight and hair light. And I just love shooting like that.
You know, it's like, I mean, to kind of go back a little bit and talk about
was this the
the
piece that you were talking about?
That's the picture. That's what they have, the different iterations. Or like that's one of the main ones. But there's that one. They're at a diner sitting somewhere. They're like by James Dean's red car, the one he crashed in. There's a bunch of little like homages. But yes, that's the image. If you're watching this on YouTube, that's the one I'm referring to.
Cool. Sorry.
Anyway, sorry, Delo.
You're good. No, I think to kind of go back, the first time I watched it, it was also, you know, the film school. It was trying to teach us what to kind of look for when you're trying to appreciate film. I think to even draw a little bit more back and be kind of meta about things, like I think with everything, there's like when you're trying to get somebody into let's say like wines, or you're trying to get them into like food, or you're trying to get them into music, it's not like you'll just give them anything or you'll throw anything at them, because you know that there's certain things that you can give them that this is like the pinnacle of what you're trying to look for and what you're trying to appreciate, and it's easier to kind of like get the hang of it. And I mean, for me, this film was that. It was like I watching it and thinking, it's an older film, you know, it's in the black and white, which, you know, I think our generation is like spooked because we think, well, they can make better films now, right?
Yeah.
Well, when you look at like for everything that it puts in as far as like story, you're mentioning cinematography, but I mean locations, the character design, everything that comes together, it ends up being just this masterpiece that it's hard to you can have trouble relating at times, maybe because of that time difference, but
sure.
The story is extremely solid. And I think,
you know, I think in terms of that, I think in terms of relatability, I love the whole, I mean, and if you know my writing, you know that I love the whole, the one that got away, approach. And this is the epitome of the one that got away story.
The Great White Buffalo.
The Great White Buffalo. Yeah. So I think relatability, it's that. And the other side of it is everybody loves Nazi history. Everybody, I don't care who you are. If you're a history fan or you're not, you love hearing about World War II and the Nazis and the freeing of the Jews and the Americans.
Biggest antagonist.
Yeah, so I think people at the very least are like, oh, I'm familiar with that. Yeah. I know what that is, you know.
And to kind of go into that, I mean, they're the way the story's crafted. Even if, let's say, I showed this to, like, you know, in the future I have kids and I showed it to them, it's built where you don't need to understand your history to understand what they're going through, who's the villains, who's the antagonist, who's the protagonist, what are they trying to accomplish. And the story is just so fine-tuned in that way that, I mean, you're getting the best performance out of the actors and everybody else, that then when it comes to, like, cinematography, lighting, and all that, you see them thinking, oh, okay, well, we want to really emphasize the separation between Humphrey Bogart's character and the way he doesn't want to open himself up to the rest of the world, and showing that kind of closed off, still almost stoic nature to him. And the lighting, the cinematography, one of my favorite shots.
Delao and I have talked about writing, and we've talked about the importance and the cool kind of aesthetic of having the backdrop of the world that we're placing our characters in is fucking going crazy. And we've done this in I've done it in multiple films, and the stuff that Delao is currently writing, which is amazing. He's doing that. It's kind of like seeking a friend for the end of the world. Kind of like a bunch of shit is just going on in the background, but nobody cares about that. You care about these characters. Mm-hmm. And I think Casablanca does that so perfectly. Yes, World War II, the Nazis, Casablanca being this neutral area where they can't come and invade, or they can't extradite. So that's the whole deal with this. But who cares? You care about Humphrey, you care about Rick, and you care about what's her name?
Sam.
Oh my gosh,
Sam.
I care about.
Well, yes, you care about Sam too, but
better care about Sam.
Isla Lund. But you care about them. You don't care about the Nazis in the back. You don't care about any of it other than these two characters. And you know, obviously,
just let you know enough to know of the dangers of the kind of like the turbulent times they're in. But that's it.
Right, exactly, and it's just a backdrop. It's not a war picture. It's a backdrop to a love story. and I love it. And then Castro, I mean, by the way, guys, and if you're listening out there and if you're seeing the screen, I'm gonna geek out, and this film excites me very much because this to me is the epitome of classic Hollywood, which is my favorite era in Hollywood history, and it's and it's set a precedent for how to tell stories from that
I'm
point
learning
forward.
to appreciate this type of cinema.
That's good.
And I wanna
point.
touch on something that Dalal mentioned. Dalal mentioned that when you're trying to get people into film, you don't throw fucking Jugetsu or you don't throw Citizen Kane or you don't throw Casablanca at them. You walk them in to, and for me it's that way. If I'm gonna get somebody into film, I'm not gonna screen that. I'm gonna screen maybe Chef, or I'm gonna screen
Suicide Squad.
La La Land. Well, not Suicide Squad. Gosh, I hope not.
Hey, Oscar winner, Suicide Squad, please.
Oscar winner Suicide. Hey, I'm excited for James Gunn's Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, I'm excited for it. It's James Gunn. I don't know.
Like you want to what?
I think we lost Yokomoto, or he's frozen.
Hey, that's a meme.
There he is. He's back.
No, but you want to give people something that it helps them understand certain elements, even maybe stuff that's a little bit more current and relatable. But then you go back to this, and you can really appreciate like then the origins and how it was fine tuned at this point, where then other people are really trying to like replicate that.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring it up now so that I don't repeat myself a lot. But we did La La Land on this podcast, and we talked about just how heavily influenced it was from original musicals, but it has a very heavy Casablanca influence. In fact, the final look of La La Land is directly stolen, borrowed, inspired by Casablanca.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, think about the airport scene in Casablanca.
Mm-hmm.
Here's looking at you, kid. She walks away. She turns back around, sees Rick. Rick sees her, and then they separate.
Yeah. Okay.
So, and then not only that, but there's references of Casablanca and La La Land.
Backlot Studios and on the balcony.
Backlot Studios.
Thing,
That's the window where Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman look out in Casablanca. And then my aunt used to show me old films like Notorious and Casablanca. And Ingrid Bergman, by the way, she went on to do amazing pictures. She did Notorious with Alfred Hitchcock. She did several films with Ingmar Bergman from, Ingmar Bergman, the director, and a lot of fantastic classic Hollywood Criterion-worthy pictures. Literally, they're all on Criterion. And she, if I'm not mistaken, is German? A German actress?
She's got a German name.
We all got our quirks.
She's from Sweden. She's from Stockholm. I take it back. She's Swedish. But she went on to do some amazing pictures. And again, if you watch La La Land, Mia's character in her room, literally the backdrop of the actress on her wall, that's Ingrid Bergman. That's Casablanca's Ingrid Bergman. I mean,
that's true. I completely forgot about that.
Like, I mean, and to kind of dial it back, we look at Casablanca now, and it's kind of odd because it's really like it's not something you show off the bat, but once you appreciate film or even just appreciate like Hollywood in general, you acknowledge it, all the time, or you see it all the time. Like I know growing up, my father was like super into like the whole Hollywood scene. He tried to have like a theater room. He put up like Hollywood banners and all that kind of stuff.
That's cool. I wanna...
And there'd be so many like pictures around that I didn't understand. I just saw like, oh, it's a Hollywood actor, but it was Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman and the Casablanca, because that's just such a big like Hollywood thing. Like now
I feel like
I'm gonna be hated on in this.
You have these actors. No, because I love that perspective. I love that perspective of modern storytelling versus classic storytelling, and how there's some instances of classic storytelling that modern storytelling borrows for the sake of structure, for the sake of story, but it's not the same. We're losing, and that's my argument, Gus. Is like we're losing that pureness. We're using that purity of storytelling.
On a quick note for like movies and cinema progressing as like an art form, and like when it comes to like you appreciating it, Castro, there's some that believe, like I know in the cinematography world, that the moment that we're at right now is the best moment in cinematography kind of history, because the technology's there, the equipment's there, the expertise and training's there. I mean, you look at movies that got like cinematography awards back in the day, and they can't do a tenth of the stuff of what we can do now.
And Austin and I were just talking about that last night because of like things like the Mandalorian, like what they're doing with rear projection.
Yeah,
cinematographers love rear projection now, and they think this is the way to go. Not pun intended, but this is the way in terms of instead of using CG and green screens, rear projection is the way to go about it.
Or then you look at stuff that kind of came before and you can appreciate it. And I think that's what kind of the podcast and the talk is to do, is to appreciate it, but to go back and try to recreate it and see if it has the same effect as stuff today, it'd be hard to compare. But
my whole the simple thing is the attention span.
Yeah.
My whole thing.
Oh yeah.
My whole thing in filmmaking and film appreciation, like my big thing is, and I think that this is why I love Casablanca so much. I've always wanted to honor the masters that came before me.
Yeah.
You know, and if you honor them and you appreciate their work, you know exactly what to do in your story. Like, you know how to kind of move forward. Yes.
That was a great cable guy.
Sandra and I were watching Liar Liar the other night, by the way.
Come on.
But anyways, I've always just wanted to honor the heroes and the masters that came before me because
they established the ground we walk on now.
Not only did they establish the ground we walk on, but we have to refer back to them. Like, how many filmmakers do you appreciate? The Wes Andersons, the David Finchers, the Martin Scorseses, the Chris Nolans. They know all of those films.
Yeah.
They refer to those films for their own work.
Now,
you know,
in a devil's advocate, like I can kind of see when it comes to like acting though. I mean, like we've gone from the acting that was more takes more
theater,
inspiration from like the theater and all that, and you see the influence even in Casablanca with the way that there's this kind of like pause and tension and tone where you understand exactly what the emotion's supposed to be in that moment.
This movie, Casablanca, is and it's what cinema does best. It's what theater can't do. It's a film of looks.
Yeah.
It's a film of the look says everything I need to know about this character. It's everything I need to know about what they're feeling currently. And theater can't do that.
I'm watching it, dude.
Theater can't do that. You know, not unless you're Hamilton and you get 10 cameras to film. Theater can't do that right now, you know, or ever. And it's not meant to do that. It's meant to be in the room.
That's its own medium, that's its own thing.
And it's respected and it's honored. Yeah. And by the way, let's talk about that a little bit. The way Casablanca came about is it was actually based on an unproduced stage play.
It feels like
yeah, and it really does. You really could put up a production of Casablanca on a stage.
It's mainly in that Rick's Diner, right?
It's in Rick's. So the stage play was called Everybody Comes to Rick's. That's what the stage play was called. Everybody Comes to Rick's. Warner Brothers, they got word from one of the producers, one of the minor producers, and said, hey, there's this stage play. You guys got to buy it because somebody else is going to snag it up and it's going to make for a great picture. Warner Brothers spent the most amount of money ever purchased on a screenplay at that time, which was $20,000, which nowadays is nothing. Yeah. Writers for their scripts, even screenplay writers, get $100,000 against $300,000, which means you get, if you know anything about Entourage, they talk about it. The writer will get $100,000 for the script, and if the film gets made, they get another $200,000. And that's kind of how writers work in terms of getting paid for their work.
Or back end.
Or back end. I mean, if you're an established, you get 1% or you get $1 for whatever. But $20,000 was the most anybody had ever paid at that point for a screenplay. So not only did they get, I don't know if you guys have seen the writing credits for Casablanca, but there's, the screenplays by 3 different writers. Julius Epstein, Philip Epstein, and a guy named Howard Koch. And I think I told this story to you guys when we were kind of prepping for this, but what happened was, if you know anything about the studio system is one of my favorite things to talk about in terms of classic Hollywood. The studio system, basically, somebody, I forget the writer that says it, but they said it's theater meets the Ford company. It's storytelling meets prepackaging assembly line filmmaking. And that's what studios were trying to do because naturally they could maximize their profits. If they prepackage certain things for certain genres or certain audiences, they get more films out, they get more money. What what happened was the studio system did that as a factory assembly line setting, but that all means that they have to have all the product in-house. So what does that mean? That means obviously sets. That's why they build sound stages. Actors go into that because they had contracts with specific studios and they couldn't act for anybody else unless that studio gave them permission. This was the case for Casablanca. Humphrey Bogart had a contract with Warner Brothers. He could not work with anybody else. He worked for Warner Brothers. But he loved working for Warner Brothers because Humphrey Bogart originally was the gangster guy. He came out in gangster pictures, and that's what Warner Brothers was known for. And he wanted to step away from that a little bit, which is why he did Casablanca. And producers and Warner Brothers wanted him to not be the gangster guy anymore. They wanted to make him like the rom-com love guy. So that was kind of the initial thing with casting Humphrey Bogart.
Although still kind of gangstery in this movie, though.
It is. Oh, definitely is.
Like,
I mean, he has that feel, right? He owns
Yeah.
the club and he wears the white
the
suit.
shots and all that.
Yeah.
South, yeah.
He has the gun in his office. Yeah, of course. Ingrid Bergman, fun fact, she didn't work for Warner Brothers. She worked for Paramount and MGM. And the producers lent them to Warner Brothers thinking Casablanca sounds like a shitty Algiers movie. So it's not going to make any money. It's fine. Just lend them to her. We don't care. Usually there's a loan, you have to pay a certain amount so that they can loan the actress or actor to you. And Warner Brothers didn't have to do that. They just got her that way. The film itself, again, it's a product of assembly line. So there was 12, 13, 15 pictures that Warner Brothers was producing. Sound stages were actually used like that back in the day. It was one sound stage per film, and you had 20 sound stages. You had 20 films that were being produced. So Casablanca was just one of the ones on the assembly line, man.
One just quick thing.
Yeah.
This is at the same time. This is a beautiful accident movie.
Yeah.
Where, thanks to that system, it was still being worked on as it was being filmed.
Right.
There were
Even
so many
script.
things that were. Yeah, the script was worked on as it was filming.
They shot, from my understanding, 4 different endings.
Yes. Ingrid Bergman, she doesn't. She confesses that she didn't even know who the hell was she gonna turn.
It's funny that you say that, Yoko. There's a moment where, you know how there's a scene where one side of the bar is singing the German anthem or whatever, and the other bar is singing, the other side of the bar singing the French, anthem. Yes, thank you. And they brought Humphrey Bogart into the studio they just told him, stand in the middle of the bar and nod your head. And he didn't know why. He went to go work. He shot that for half a day, and then he went home, and he didn't know what it was for. And it turns out he was saying yes to the band to play the French national anthem. That was the scene, but he didn't even know why. They were just like, hey, come in and do this scene and do this and then go home. And that was
That's
it.
crazy.
I mean, I was reading that the last line, the legendary, and we're going to talk about that too, the legendary lines in this movie, the memorable lines. The last line is, a lot of them were, in fact, Here's Looking at You, Kid was not written into the script. It was entirely improvised by Humphrey Bogart. What happened was, in between takes, he was teaching Ingrid Bergman how to play poker. That's just who Bogey was. Bogey was a poker, whiskey drinking, cigar smoking kind of guy. And in between takes, he was teaching her how to play poker. When you play poker, there's a poker face, right? And when he's telling, you're trying to trick people or you're trying to be confident, well, he'd say, here's looking at you, kid. Here's my hand. Here's looking at you. Okay. And the director heard it, Curtiz heard it, and it was let's use it in the movie, dude. And it's said 4 times in the picture. And those 4 times are just legendary.
Is it weird that it's just also such a unique phrase? Because I've never heard that in any type of sentence ever. So then it makes the phrase even more special. I can only think of that phrase with Casablanca. That's the only.
I mean, whenever it's being said outside, it's said as a reference to Casablanca.
It's a reference, yeah. I mean, and then the last line, it's referenced in so many movies. This is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. So they obviously they're not gonna have a boom pole that long when they're walking off into the distance at the airport. So
Well, they
what they
could.
did was they dubbed the line
they
right
didn't.
afterwards. So they
It was
gave
just
him
lazy.
2 lines. There was 2 lines.
One is God, I hate Nazis. The other one was here's the beginning.
Okay.
I
So
think
the
the
2
other one
lines
was the one that
were
made it, though.
the 2 lines were. The other one just doesn't make sense. It was just like weird.
Ever
man.
smoked a stogie with bourbon?
You know what? That Marty guy is something.
The Marty guy.
I'm gonna try to look.
It's like you're taking
Castro.
too long to research this, bro.
Castro, you're walking into the distance. You got a Nazi in your arms. You know, what do you tell him?
I can't find it, but anyways, there was just some weird random line that made no sense to what they were talking about. But this is what do you say, Louis? I feel like this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. That line is so used in so many. I mean, as homages or as like references or even as parodies. But I mean, guys, when we're talking about writing. That's like the writer's dream, is to have a memorable line that's going to be quoted for 100 years.
Yeah.
You had these, here's looking at you, kid, beautiful friendship. You had, of all the gin joints of all the cities of all the world, she walks into mine. I mean,
That's always been my favorite one.
Yeah,
come
fucking-
on.
That's always been burned into my mind since the first time I saw it.
Fantastic writing. So fun fact about the directing, they wanted William Wyler. If you know anything about classic Hollywood, you know anything about great directors in classic Hollywood. William Wyler, he's not Billy Wilder, by the way. William Wyler.
Not William Dafoe.
Not William Dafoe, but William Wyler. William Wyler is unique in the sense that he did a ton of silent pictures, and he was one of the directors that survived going to sound. And he did the biggest film that people know him for is Funny Girl with Barbra Streisand. It's a legendary 60s picture, but he did like the original Carrie at Paramount. He did Jezebel, Come and Get It. I mean, a bunch of legendary Hollywood pictures. They wanted him. They couldn't get him, so they settled for Michael Curtiz. And like I said, Michael Curtiz is legendary in terms of Casablanca and his involvement in Casablanca. Because, let me tell you why. Michael Curtiz was... he's from Hungary. So he knew that world a little more. I mean, in terms of being there for World War I, World War II, and the Nazis and what's going on overseas, he's from Hungary. He's from Germany. You know, so he knew what was going on, and he had a much more closer, if I'm not mistaken, he was in the military as well. So he had a much more closer relationship to that world.
Yeah.
And I think that's why the authenticity is there. And speaking of that, the extras in the film, guys, especially for the anti-Nazi kind of scenes, they were actually Holocaust survivors.
Oh,
Oh, really?
And former Nazi officers.
Oh,
And
man.
that's who they were in the film. So that, again, just the scene with the French national anthem, those were Holocaust survivors.
that sounds so rough to hear. I can't imagine like going through this thing and then it being portrayed on the screen and you having to like to have that weight. Like, my God, that
But how legendary, you get to
Yeah.
stick it in their face, because it's obviously an anti-Nazi film.
yeah.
Well, it's actually not as obvious because in the end, it's, as we said at the beginning, it's really not about that struggle.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true.
Like they do talk about the situation, and
Yeah.
like especially with Ingrid's husband, they do talk about his backstory where he was taken into concentration camps,
Yeah.
and that's why she's basically single and meets up with Humphrey Bogart. But like they just kind of breeze through that, and then
I mean,
out of nowhere he's just
but-
like,
Yeah, I mean, to
There's
the point where
definitely
if you revisit the film, in that scene with the song that Watch on the Rhine and Marcel's, I can't pronounce it, but the French
Bogart.
national anthem, there's actual tears in their eyes.
Ooh.
There's actual tears in the extras' eyes because they're overcoming this emotion. I mean,
For real?
yeah. I mean, if you revisit the film, make sure to check that out. But it's just,
yeah,
it's just fun, man.
actually,
That's insane.
good thing to check out.
For sure.
Yeah. By the way, I want to talk a little bit about the actors, a little more about Humphrey Bogart. Humphrey Bogart, man, what you see in Casablanca, Rick, that's basically the real life Humphrey Bogart.
Yeah.
He liked to drink, he liked to smoke, he was kind of a boss where he was, but I love that era of Hollywood because that's where when you see that portrayed in cinema, like if you see Cafe Society, or if you see, if you guys haven't seen Netflix's Hollywood, the show, oh my gosh, man, it's actually a pretty great show. It's kind of fictional, but it dives into what actors back then had to do sexually to be in a movie, or be in a show.
Isn't that guy with the guy from The Big Bang?
Yes.
Not right.
Jim Parsons plays like an agent who would make his clients like give him fellatio.
I've asked myself that same question, and I'd probably do it, man.
You probably would do it.
Man, be a Hollywood star?
Fantastic. I mean, it's a fantastic show, and they actually use real life like characters, like real life people mixed with fictional characters to tell the story. But when you see those characters portrayed on the screen, you see them like celebrities. Like today, it's not as exciting to hear that. I don't know, that Beyonce and Jay-Z is partying it up with Leo. Who gives a shit? I don't care. But when you hear about back then, with Humphrey would party with Ava Gardner and with Howard Hughes.
Gods meeting gods.
Exactly,
Yes!
man. Myths. Did that actually happen? You know.
I just love that. And Humphrey Bogart. Do you guys know what the Rat Pack is?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So the Rat Pack consists of, as we know it, Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra.
What's the span? 40s to what?
40s to 60s.
The early 60s, right?
Yeah, late 50s, early 60s. Okay. So we know them as
people
that.
Who basically came out in the original Ocean's 11, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Sammy Davis Jr., again, Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra. So these were the Vegas Rat Pack because they all performed together in Vegas, especially late in their careers. And without getting into too much fascinating detail, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, everybody, they were involved with the mob when the mob was in Vegas, and there's this whole backstory to that. But no, I mean, you guys know who Don Rickles is, right?
Yeah.
Legendary comedian, legendary actor, passed away, the late great Don Rickles. He used to do the clubs in Vegas and would party with Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, and he was kind of part of that Rat Pack. And he tells the craziest stories of when wise guys, mobsters, came into the fucking casinos and would, like, they knew Don Rickles. They would have a table for Don Rickles, table for Frank Sinatra. I mean,
back in the day, Vegas, man.
And that's why Don Rickles was
making such a buzz about this. I mean, I go to Mexico and I see narcos doing the same thing.
Exactly, right?
That's kind of what it is. The modern.
How you doing? Keep it moving.
Modern mobsters. But that's why Don Rickles was casted in Scorsese's Casino, because he was in that. He was in that world. Anyways. Vegas Rat Pack, legendary group of people, right? Well, Humphrey Bogart started the Rat Pack. Humphrey Bogart used to go to a club. Hold on, I have it here. He used to go to a club called the Romanovs in Beverly Hills. This classic, LA club. Restaurant club, and you used to have people like Lauren Bacall, and you used to have Frank Sinatra. Anybody who lived in LA and Hollywood, that's kind of the hot spot, right? It was an exclusive club, and the owner of Romanov's, the restaurant, was having a party in Vegas and kind of invited everybody from the pack, right? And Lauren Bacall said, "I'm sorry, Lauren Bacall said, 'You look like a goddamn Rat Pack.'" And that's where that comes from. So it was a society of higher ups that included Frank Sinatra, Judy Garland. This started in LA, and they called it the Rat Pack. And Frank Sinatra was the quote unquote the president, the pack leader. Bacall was the den mother. She'd organize the little area. Humphrey Bogart was the director of public relations for the Rat Pack.
Wow.
So
yeah.
Then that turned into what we know it as Frank Sinatra and everybody. But he was that guy, man. And he was that guy. And I read, or maybe I saw a documentary on Bogart where they said that in his later years, man, he had a drinking problem, obviously. And in his later years.
Who doesn't?
Hey, man, yeah.
Right, exactly. I mean, he died at 57 because of it, right? So in his later years, he knew he had cancer, and he didn't tell anybody. He didn't tell anybody, kind of like the whole Chadwick Boseman thing. He just kept it quiet for those last couple years.
Or Queen.
Until somebody asked him, hey, man, when your contract expires at Warner Brothers, are you going to go with Paramount or are you going to go with, Universal? And he said, no, I'm going to go with Warner Brothers, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to expire before my contract does.
Oh, premonition.
Because it was like a 10-year contract. And he said that, the premonition. And
sure enough, you're still like, no, your contract still says.
Yeah, sure enough, he did, man. But again, it was that thing with Humphrey Bogart and his legendary Hollywood lifestyle. Like anybody who's an actor in Hollywood wants to be Humphrey Bogart. Man.
I thought it would be him or The Godfather.
Oh, Marlon Brando.
Oh, Marlon Brando.
Yeah, I thought he was the guy.
Nah, Marlon Brando was an asshole though.
But he was. I knew him more than this guy. Now I'm interested in this guy, but I knew that guy more.
That's fair. I mean, but Marlon Brando. Okay, here's a fun fact about it, right? If you know anything about the American Film Institute, AFI, they're kind of the go-to of listing the top 100 films of the last decade or of the last 20 years or whatever, or of the last 100 years. So they have the best 100 films of the last 100 years. Number 1, and Austin will be happy to hear this, is Citizen Kane. Number 2 is The Godfather. And number 3 is Casablanca.
Makes sense.
So
number
yes,
4,
you're right. You have these kind of.
Number 4 is surprisingly Shrek, but we'll just let that kind of.
Is it really?
Oh, that's another.
No. Casablanca,
right?
Yeah.
So Carlos, who would you consider the better? I wouldn't say actor, but the bigger icon.
Humphrey Bogart, by far. And let me tell you why. Because Marlon Brando did a lot of early things in his career, but before The Godfather, I mean, Streetcar Named Desire. I mean, you had, but he was kind of basically known as Superman's dad. Beyond The Godfather, that's kind of the role people associated him with.
And then that, or his assholeness in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that he went through some.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He went through a cold streak because people didn't want to work with him. Yeah. And then Coppola came around and said, I have the script. It's, The Godfather, it's based on a book by Mario Puzo. And he came about and he went to Brando's house. And Brando convinced Coppola to cast him. It wasn't the other way around. It was Brando convincing Coppola to the point where when he invited Coppola to his house, he put shoe polish on his hair. Famous story where he put shoe polish on his hair and he put cotton balls in his cheeks.
Why?
So, well, because that's the character. If you see him, The Godfather, he has like
I've heard that story. Yeah.
So he had to convince him, and then he had to convince the studios too, because the studio didn't want to work with Brando. So there was a whole thing with that. So I think The Godfather is legendary. It's a standard for storytelling. I'd argue that The Godfather 2 is more of a standard for storytelling, but Casablanca is a more iconic picture.
Nah, that's not what the ranks say.
But
I mean, then again, sometimes the ranks actually do change because if I'm correct, Casablanca was number 2 at one point.
Well, let me throw this wrench in there. The Writers Guild of America back in 2006, and it hasn't changed up to now. The Writers Guild of America deemed Casablanca the best screenplay ever written.
Okay, I would argue that. But yeah.
This is the Writers Guild. This is the WGA. This is where all the writers that you know and love are involved in this union. They all voted, and they deemed Casablanca the best script ever written.
I think a big element for that, and it's something that I've been keeping more track of in writing. I mean, there's the way a story's constructed, but when you're looking at a screenplay and how that's supposed to translate for actors, there's something about the dialogue and the way it's crafted for each character that you can imagine anybody reading it and the same kind of like feeling would come off it. That a script that is written kind of generally where anybody could kind of jump into that role and you wouldn't see that person's personality. I feel like this script just has a lot of that, from like Sam's character to Humphrey Bogart's character.
Think about the script.
To the Nazis and all that.
I think that the thing to argue here, I feel like Citizen Kane and Casablanca, you can stem every other script that came after that from those two pictures. Think about it. The Citizen Kane is the Rosebud approach. What's going to be the Rosebud in this film? How are we going to set up a plot twist, for this film? that's kind of one approach of writing, right? And again, I'm not trying to diminish. There's many approaches, but in its integrity, right? Casablanca is the one that got away, the character of characters. How do you take a deep dive into a character? Though Citizen Kane does that very effectively as well. The whole basis of the film is what's the rosebud? What does rosebud mean? And then Casablanca's approach is, well, I fell in love with these characters and now you're taking them away from me. Why and what's the purpose? So I don't know. I feel like you can stem name a film that you like. I mean, what's the cable guy's rosebud? It's kind of that whole
Yeah,
deal.
yeah.
Okay, I got you. Jack and Jill, Adam Sandler's go.
Oh my gosh.
Explain every detail, please.
Maybe Ed Wood can explain that for you, because in terms of terrible pictures, he can tell you what it is. By the way, again, classic Hollywood. If you've watched Ed Wood, the rosebud in Ed Wood is fucking Orson Welles. He has a conversation with Orson Welles at the end of the film. Anyways. Yeah, guys, I don't know. I think in terms of Casablanca, it's not that so many films are modeled after it, but it's inspired how to effectively tell a story. And I think that's maybe why it won that award for best screenplay. The film won a significantly amount of Oscars.
Yeah, well, it got the best picture that year.
It got best picture that year. I think it got
Which
best.
was it the first time that the Oscars went to 10 pictures?
It was the first time
that the Oscars went all the way to like being 10 pictures nominated.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. 10. It was a good year. It was a good year for the Oscars. I mean,
I watched it.
What was the controversy with the whole "Play It Again" Sam?
Okay, what do you mean controversy in terms of the story?
Yes, that he didn't say that. It wasn't something like.
Okay, so he didn't. He never says "play it again, Sam" in the film. He says, "If you played it for her, you could play it for me. Play it." He never says "play it again, Sam."
So why do people say "play it again"?
Because
it's a whole damn it, I forget the
Mandela effect.
it's like Luke, I am your father. He never says Luke, I am your father in Star Wars.
What does he say?
He says, "I am your father."
No, he says.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
No,
He says no.
I'm your father.
He says no. Yeah, that's right. No. Yeah.
Better
He's like, you killed my father. And he's like, no, I am your father.
Yeah.
But he doesn't say, Luke, I am your father. Yeah, it's one of those things that we all have heard it from so many other people who, like, at some point in time misinterpreted it, that we just think that that's the fact. But yeah.
Although they did
broken
two
telephone
parody,
thing.
Catchy, I guess it just.
they did two parody films. One of them's called A Night in Casablanca, which again parody, kind of just making fun of the story. And not the late because he hasn't died. The great Woody Allen made a film called "Play It Again, Sam."
Oh,
So it maybe people thought whatever, but anyways, yeah.
I just wanted to ask that.
By the way,
Airplane also has a really good moment. Casablanca parody on it. I really like it.
Who?
Airplane.
Oh,
It has
Airplane.
a really good parody spoof on
Airplane
Casablanca.
does have a
When they're at the gin joint.
Yeah, the gin joint. Yeah. I love how the connection between these characters is, and I want to talk about that next. The legendary "As Time Goes By," the song. This is the soundtrack of the film. This is it's the only song you need to hear to know Casablanca. And Dooley Wilson, fun fact about Dooley Wilson, he doesn't even know how to play the piano. He's a drummer. He's a drummer, awesome. But he's faking playing the piano in the film. The song was not written for the film. It was a popular song back then. What's cool about that is Casablanca was so much associated, and it did really good at the box office at the time. It won Oscars, so much so that there was a producer of the film, the producer of Casablanca. When it won, Jack L. Warner, the head of Warner Brothers at the time, the youngest brother, by the way, he went up on the stage he was the first guy on the stage to accept the award, and the producer never forgave him for that.
Oh,
wow.
Because it was Warner's,
Yeah.
They associate Casablanca and Warner's. It became a legendary staple picture for them. So much so that we can't play it on here because then we'll get a mark for copyright. I wish we could. again, because we have once before. If you hear the Warner Brothers song, the Warner Brothers theme song, whenever it opens up a picture, unless it's Harry Potter, because Harry Potter opens up with its own score. Yeah. But if it's Warner Brothers and it has its original theme song, listen closely. It's As Time Goes By from Casablanca.
I never knew that. If it is true, I never knew that.
You showed it to me one time, and it's crazy because you listen to it and then you realize it, but then it, like, adds that extra weight. Like, oh my god, it's so iconic.
Yeah, it's
Hollywood mentality.
How much more?
It's kind of like the arrow on FedEx. Once you see it, like
yeah. No, trust me. Listen to it. It's uncanny how much it's As Time Goes by in Casablanca. But
to kind of, I mean, you're on a train, Carlos. And
I'm sorry. Yeah.
No. But I want to kind of ask you a question, like, you know, when you're trying to get somebody into film, when you're trying to show somebody a way to appreciate this film, because I mean, once you're at that level of just like appreciating, you can go back and rewatch this, and it's like there's always a new detail, there's always a new thing to look at, appreciate, kind of dissect. Do you start this film out early, or do you start this film out later? Like, where does this kind of lie when it comes to like really enjoying the film?
I think you need to do both. For me, I tell this to Sandra. Thinks I'm weird in this.
Some Like It Hot, dude. That's how you start.
Oh, Some Like It Hot.
Yeah, dude. I love
Billy
that.
Wilder. We have to do a Billy Wilder episode for this podcast, man. I fucking love Billy Wilder.
We got the guest.
Yeah, seriously. No, but yeah, we do have the guest. You're right. Anyways, yeah, you're absolutely right.
I like to be part of that joke too.
I'm sorry.
I like inside jokes.
Talk about you, man. I don't even know what to talk about.
We can't reveal it to our audience just yet, guys.
Yeah, I like films too, dude.
You watch them, you know?
No. To answer your question, Sandra thinks I'm weird to a certain degree. Not weird, but she's always getting on my case because she's like, you won't watch a film unless Martin Scorsese recommends it, you know, like, or somebody, you know, or you heard it in some podcast and somebody says this is whatever, or you read it in the journal, whatever. I'm guilty of that. I am. And it's one of those things where I have a list of like, well, it's a film you have to watch if you love film, right? So I got to check it out. So I watched it the first time and I fell in love with the story. And I think that's the point. Like, everybody should watch it just to watch it and fall in love with the story. And then revisited, I don't know, 2 years later, after you've kind of summoned some cinema and you've garnered a little bit of cinema history and a little bit of cinema knowledge. Then you revisit it and you're like, oh my God. I mean, to the point where, let me put it to you this way. I was watching The Wizard of Oz the other day. Those films from those eras, 30s, 40s, 50s, used one of my favorite storytelling techniques in cinema, which is forced perspective. In terms of set design and camera placement, forced perspective is one of my favorite things. In short, if you've ever gone to Disneyland, when you enter Disneyland, the castle looks so much bigger than it really is. That's because the park was designed with forced perspective, something that they used in cinema. Let me put it to you this way. There was no real airplane on the set of Casablanca.
No.
That was a soundstage, and it was a cardboard cutout of an airplane, and there were little people as the actors loading the stuff into the plane. That's forced perspective, and we all think it's a
really. Oh my God!
I mean,
I gotta say, it does blend in. Like,
it does blend in. That's the point.
Can't tell.
Yeah, so I think that's my point. Is once you've garnered little kind of bits about the film or about storytelling in general, you see it and you appreciate it so much more. You know?
Yeah, that is cool.
That's my kind of take. Is watch it the first time just as a film, as a story, as whatever. And then the second time you can kind of appreciate. But that's with any film, right? I think that's with any film.
Mm-hmm. Hey, also with Wizard of Oz, is it true the rumor that you could see the guy getting hanged?
I don't know. I've seen pictures.
No, it's not.
I've seen pictures.
I've heard it.
I'm like, they're not going to show in the TV. I bought it and I still can't find it.
No, I saw it. Apparently, and you can correct me if you know, Yokomoto, but apparently it's a bird. Apparently that's just a bird in the background. There's a actual like a peacock or something like that they had in the background for part of the set design, and the bird looks but I think the bird looks like a person getting hanged, and it's just the distance and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, the thing about it is that so in VHS the quality was not as good as it now is. So you just saw a shadow and it looked like someone was hanging. So now that it's 4K restoration and stuff like that, you can see way more clear.
Again, another storytelling technique. Wizard of Oz was the first film to use what we know as Technicolor. You know.
Oh yeah, the big scene.
The big
Elaborate a little bit. What?
Technicolor. I mean, as we know it, Technicolor is the way they would promote films back then was when they went from us three to Yokomoto, when they went from black and white to color.
I thought nobody noticed.
Yes, of course. I know. When they went from that, they started promoting presented in Technicolor. Technicolor doesn't mean anything other than it's shot. I mean, there's a specific type of film that captured certain colors, and that's what they promoted. Yeah, it was a marketing bit. Just like when you see the opening of La La Land presented in CinemaScope. CinemaScope was a lens that shot wide, but it didn't really mean anything. It wasn't necessarily a technology. It was a marketing bit presented in CinemaScope. So that's what Technicolor was. And Wizard of Oz was the first film to kind of promote that.
Okay.
Like now talking that it's shot in IMAX.
Shot in IMAX, yeah. That's our modern,
or in 4K or 8K. Stuff like
that's what it is. All right, guys. I think I've geeked out enough and talked your ear off about Casablanca. Unless you guys have any other questions, or we want to get into
well, I do want to question Castro something.
Oh man,
we've heard all the praise and love for Casablanca, but what about someone who didn't really like it as much?
What do you mean?
Yeah, like what
Castro,
what turned you off?
You didn't like. Yeah.
Well, but like I was telling the Lao, it's just the attention, man. Just the long takes. Like it's cool once in a while, but like too many of them could just, get you out of the zone.
I feel like it also is that kind of classic thing of like theater, because in theater, you would have these kind of like big long takes on a single set, interactions and all that.
And I like theater. It's just
but now we're used to this concept of like the quick cuts, the pushing into faces, the medium shot that's supposed to show a type of like connection or tension between the two. And I mean, those are things that were fine-tuned and finessed as the years went on. But this is kind of like those early stages that we still come back to because they set a precedent for certain elements being a big part of cinema.
It's a safety net. It's a safety net for studios, and it's a safety net for production companies. I when I'm on set, guys, Austin hates this because it's his job to tell me this.
He's a mean drunk.
He is a mean drunk, and he comes on to set drunk. No, but I hate the term coverage. I hate it. I hate get coverage. Because coverage is formulaic. Coverage is go get your wide, go get your medium, go get your close, that's coverage. It's your shot.
We're making content.
No, but it's shut up, Bilal. I hate that word too. No, but I don't like coverage because it means that everything is pre-selected for me. Where if I have a DP and we agreed on a shot list, I don't care if it has a medium shot or if it's a shot we agreed on to tell that specific scene, then that's what I care about. I don't want to predestine. Look, whenever this is why I don't want to work on TV. I mean, maybe I'll try it, right? But when you're working for TV and you're hired as a director, one of our guests on Towercast told you this. You're not, like, for instance, Kevin Smith directed episodes of The Flash, right?
Right.
When they have a director come onto a show, they say, here, you have to shoot all of these. You have to shoot pre-coverage. They kind of manipulate little details there, but they have their shot list pre-selected for them that a huevo they have to get these shots.
I guess it would be a question for Austin. Would Austin like the more?
Well, because he's an editor and a producer, it's his job to say if he has coverage, he knows he can cut it.
Exactly.
But if it's a oneer, like I like to do, if it's a oneer,
you're risking.
I'm risking.
Which is cool, but might as well get the coverage.
It's also that challenge of like.
I don't know. I'm just saying, like, for an actor, hey, get every angle, because in the editing, you don't want to be like, dude, I wish we had this angle.
But then to me, it just feels like you're not lending the craft of cinematography to the story.
You're just like you're not in the moment and whatever. But
no, not just that. But it just feels like the craft of cinematography it's evolved so much to have these new tools to tell. Okay, for instance, we all know this. If it's a moment of fear and uncertainty, well, maybe you want some shaky cam in there. If it's a moment of silence, then you want a still cam on sticks, no move. If you want an intense push in because the character is going to say something important, all of these kind of predestined shots we know because they serve a purpose to the character.
Right.
But when you shoot coverage, to me,
like in a TV series, which they're just like,
it's just let's just be safe about the shots we're getting so that we don't run out of time and money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then also you're shooting episode to episode, so like you're getting one, and you're like, okay, well,
you have to maintain a consistency.
Yeah, we got enough coverage here, so like if they messed up on like 1 or 2 takes, it's okay. We'll move on to the next episode, and we should have enough for the editing room.
Like, okay, so Carlos, besides the whole time, why don't you like that?
Just because it feels like it's telling the story for me, and I don't get to decide. No,
that's you thinking.
No. Well, but shooting it, but because I love production, there's some directors that don't care for production. Robert Rodriguez is one of them. He likes post-production. He doesn't like production.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm more of I like production. I want to capture the moments I sought out to capture in the style that I thought it should be told in.
If you look at like any TV show, most popular TV shows, and you kind of start noticing the distance the camera's placed from a character or the wide shots or like when they go into medium shots, they're always very much the same, because then as like the rest of the crew, let me set up the camera 6 feet away. We need these people at this marker. And for any room you're in, any set you're in, the distance will feel the same. That's kind of why it lends itself to when you look at the look of a show, just watching it for a while, you realize it's a sitcom, or you realize it's a comedy, or it's something. Because
exactly. There's a sitcom format. There's a single camera format. There's a CSI format. I mean, there's.
That's why when we went through the movie Crash, that's one of the things I noticed a lot of that movie. It has from TV production because of those type of shots that it has.
Yeah, and
let me put it this way. This is the reason I don't look. If you need to get it for certain instances, obviously you have to get some coverage. I just don't like to have a predetermined because of this. And I know you guys are going to hate me, whatever. Imagine the Copacabana scene in Goodfellas shot in coverage. It wouldn't be the Copacabana scene.
No, but you're thinking like you're going to use that. It's just a...
No, but it's the same look, Gus. Like I mean, if you're going to be shooting a 2-shot in one location... I see what
you're saying.
And then you go to the next location and you don't want to... It's going to look the exact same, and then there's nothing that makes that scene.
What differentiates that film from any other genre film that you've made in that genre?
Yeah,
no, I'm understanding for sure now.
So, like for instance, but there's certain things that work. For instance, if I'm going to make a noir film, I want to have Venetian blinds in my noir film. That's
what I was going to ask. Was this a noir film? Like, it's not.
Yeah.
It's considered neo-noir.
It dabbled into like noir. It was considered a noir film because it used certain aesthetics with the harsh lighting, Venetian blinds, shading, high contrast. In fact, if for those watching on YouTube, I was trying to recreate the look as much as I could with this setup. Normally, if you want the technical aspects, I have a fill light that's usually over here on my left, and then on my right, I have a harsh light that's going in through a bounce, and that's kind of like lighting me up, and that's what's getting this kind of look.
And the only thing
looks really good for the people.
The only thing he's missing, by definition, is a hair light behind him.
Well, no, I have that too, because there's a tiny crack in my window behind me that kind of like comes in. That's why I look at my shoulder.
You do see the outline a little bit. That's on.
Yeah.
But since you didn't mention it, I thought.
Well, no, what I'm saying is that there's a normal setup that I would do to kind of like evenly light me. But in noir, you want something a little bit more punchy, a little more contrasty. That some of it comes through the camera and the film that they use at the time. And then another part comes in through the lighting. You want single sources, harsher, Fresnels, tungstens that are just kind of like hitting in one direction, creating a single look that then you notice in Beauregard's character or any of the characters during the scene. There's this edge to them. There's this kind of like not fully. It adds something to the character,
I read somewhere that the cinematography, and I thought you were gonna bring this up. Arthur Edison was the cinematographer. He did like the Maltese Falcon and Frankenstein. So it's kind of his style. But he was shot. Ingrid Bergman had a preference. I know it sounds like diva-ish, right? But the preference was that she was shot from her left side, not her right.
Dude, okay, so I don't feel that bad now. Okay.
So there's
I have a preference, but I've never said it.
Also, a kind of neat thing. I was, I'm practicing cinematography, looking into it. There's this thing. It's called a soft. I don't want to call it a soft light filter.
It's the soft softening gauze filter.
Yeah, and it adds this kind of like almost dreamlike quality. And you see it on her so much, and it's be it a stylistic choice or a narrative choice.
She was preferenced in this film of being shot. So they would shoot her from her left side. They would use the softening gauze filter and catch lights that literally the intention was to make her eyes sparkle and make her face seem ineffably sad, tender, and nostalgic. That was the goal with the cinematography.
One thing that I do notice, especially at the end at the airport, there is this way that it's that both of them are being lit differently in a way. In their face shots, right in their close-ups.
Yeah,
like you see the one way that Humphrey Bogart is shot.
Yep.
A bit more, you could say, grayish.
Yeah,
and how it looks. While Ingrid, when they cut to her, like way more soft and way more.
Yeah, I did notice that.
What I love about this film is it's a love story shot in a dark film noir and expressionist lighting.
Okay, that's a beautiful way to. Yeah,
that's what it is. Oh, Delau, I think we lost you on camera, or we lost him completely.
I'm coming back.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Hey!
And the camera died, which reset all my settings, but this is what I normally look like. Cool.
So we have color now.
Now shot in Technicolor. Wow.
Now shot in Technicolor.
Wow, I'm back. Okay.
Well, actually,
anyways, I just thought it was
released of this movie that was colorized and everything, like in the 80s or something like that.
I want to talk about that really quick. Just really quick. In the early 2000s, I can't believe they were going to do this. Thank God it was shut down. They wanted to do a reboot of Casablanca, and by they I mean Madonna. Okay.
Oh shit.
Madonna wanted to reboot Casablanca as her playing Ingrid Bergman's character, Isla, right?
Oh my God.
And Ashton Kutcher playing the bogey character.
Ahead of its time.
They shopped it around every studio, and every studio turned them down. And one studio in particular, I think it was Paramount, said that film is untouchable.
Oh, so never.
No, it's deemed untouchable. So, yes.
Yeah, because I couldn't see.
Yeah,
I love what they did for. Look, I love what they did for Mank. Mank tells you the story of the co-writer of Citizen Kane in that perspective. I love that, dude. I eat that shit up, man. You're gonna tell me a story about Hollywood and use Gary Oldman and David Fincher to fucking tell the story. I'm there, dude. But if you're gonna reboot a film that is untouchable, no.
Yeah. Okay. That one and Back to the Future, man. Don't touch it.
Yeah, Back to the Future.
Touch it.
With the way you said, even the tension of like the extras and like that feeling and the time period that it kind of came out in, it's something that you can't just go and like recreate for funsies. Like I mean, it's got a special place in like Hollywood and cinema.
It has a legacy beyond the genre. It has a legacy beyond film noir and beyond expressionistic, and it has a legacy of being. In my opinion, it's the epitome of cinema. It's the definition of.
It's like Granny used to tell me: if you don't own it, don't touch it. You know,
right?
See, lives to this day.
I think it's getting ready to be about that time.
Actually,
guys.
Quick final question.
Oh, maybe not.
I keep forgetting this. Castro.
Oh man.
Pick.
Yeah.
You're killing me.
One actor.
Oh, for sure. Humphrey.
Definitely Peter Lorre.
Yeah, okay. Probably Sam for sure too. No, but Humphrey.
You must remember this.
I always wanted to play that. I wouldn't say gangster, but that cool guy that just has a drink and a smoke in his hand.
And I guess kind of like a follow-up question: what makes his character unique and/or hard to play for like actors?
Well, the unique aspect of it is, because it's Humphrey Bogart, man. Like, I don't know. I couldn't see anybody else doing it, man. Because I guess
he brought just that persona. Yeah.
That what?
You know, we've talked. I don't know if we talked about any other classic Hollywood actors, but guys like Clark Gable you know, Clark Gable and I mean, obviously James Dean, but they came a little later. But I agree with you, Castro. I can't see Clark Gable playing, maybe I can. I don't know. It's that line of Hollywood actors of that era, dude. Just they all had a quality to them.
Yeah. So I would say, what was the just two questions? Those two questions.
Oh no, just what makes him hard to play, and then what makes him unique. I feel like those kind of go in tandem with each other.
The character grit.
Hard because his character's kind of subtle, but hey, man, I mean.
But just having that personality and that really showing,
If you can play it for her, you can play it for me.
I like it. All right, I think we've reached that time. The great Christian Yokomoto.
It's about that time.
Father of one, I might add.
Oh, yep.
It's about that time. It's about that time.
Hey,
Proud to
daddy.
Wait, what does it say? Proud to spank daddy. What the hell?
Wow.
That's the back part.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right, take us in. Tower
All
Crown.
right. So it's about the time for the Tower Crown. And so we put up a poll. Since we were talking about Casablanca and Oscar-winning romances, the poll was about exactly that. Romances that were Oscar winners.
Yeah.
And so we put up the poll, and just to refresh people on Facebook, these were the movies.
Number one.
They were The Artist,
The Artist,
Shakespeare in Love,
Fantastic pictures.
Titanic,
Woo! Best picture of all time.
and An American in Paris.
Love an American in Paris.
So y'all,
By the way, am I becoming that asshole? I'm becoming that asshole, aren't I? Like, I love an American in Paris and The Artist, and I fucking hate Titanic.
You're a terrible person,
Yeah, you are.
Carlos.
I'm becoming the old man that likes classic pictures.
The winners are
so the results were
the Oscar goes to
The Artist against Titanic.
Beautiful.
So this time, the moderator for this debate will be Carlos.
Yours truly.
And
all right.
I was asked kindly by my colleagues here to moderate this one because I'm gonna lose my
you gotta
shit
step
if I
down every
don't.
once in a while.
Because I'm gonna lose my shit if I don't.
Hey, the moderator needs to rotate. Sometimes you speak,
Yeah,
sometimes you don't speak. I think it's good.
Yeah,
it's good. We get perspectives. Okay.
Who's doing The Artist then?
I'm taking The Artist.
All right, the last
And I'll
taking
be
The Artist.
taking Titanic.
And I'll help you with Titanic, man.
You'll help with Titanic, okay?
Yeah, more about this.
I might
you'll
add,
get Titanic.
I think it's very fitting that Delao is doing The Artist. He's the one that introduced that film to me, and I'm so eternally grateful for him showing me that film. It's one of my favorite films.
Damn, Delo, no pressure.
Yeah, I have it on physical media, but I don't want to reach all the way back there in the bokeh. So yeah, that's
All right.
okay.
So if you're ready, do you want to go first, Michael?
Yeah, I'll just say that there's, I can't say that I have as much eternal knowledge about cinema and film and I guess the history that everything kind of comes from, but The Artist has this quality of making me want to just go back and relive that and appreciate it, and it's difficult to do. I mean, it took on the challenge of not only being a film that is in black and white and labeling itself a silent film in the modern, I think it came out in 2014 if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, for a modern audience, a silent film, black and white, and you're competing with things that are, action heavy. You're competing with superhero films. You're competing with sci-fi films, romantic comedies, and all this kind of stuff. What makes you think that you could take this old, archaic genre and bring it into the modern age? And I just think it did so well at showing you the talent needed by the actors of then, the emotion that could be put in when you don't have to listen to their voice to see how they're feeling, what their expressions are. Even the scene you have right now up, that dance between the two of them where she was just supposed to be an extra and he's this big Hollywood movie star, and they didn't need to say anything for you to see the tension, the weight in his chest of dancing with her and rethinking his feelings for his wife and everything just by looking at her. And I mean, it's something that we take for granted now with our fancy pictures and movies and audio, but it really brought back that charm. It brought back the charm of not only classic cinema, of black and white, but also just the kind of subtle intricacies of even like romance, and the way that even though not everything you're feeling is said, it's all there out on display, kind of like trying to connect with another person and having to admit fault when that person might be more than you can handle. I guess that's a kind of subtle general way of putting it, but yeah, I think it just did so well at bringing back that charm. And
Both,
for romance,
both films are Best Picture winners, right?
Yes.
I believe
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, all the ones in this poll were actual winners of Best Picture.
all right. So that's where I'm going to start. That's my opening argument. So yeah,
All right.
change my mind.
Titanic.
So Titanic. First of all, for at least a decade or almost two, this was the number one top grossing movie of all time. Why? It engulfed people. It created people an emotion. This especially this chemistry between these two actors, which made everyone want to see this movie again and again and again. And which, I mean, the simple fact that this movie won about $2 billion at a time where we didn't even knew movies can go to $1 billion, it's just unprecedented. I mean, there is a stamp that this movie brings, and especially on if we go to the advancements of technology at the time, James Cameron is someone that you could deem of is an advancement, one of those people that you look for, an advancement of technology.
Yeah,
And he was the one that with this movie, he said, I want to bring this
Titanic back up.
boat to life and show you exactly how it got torn down.
Gave you a beautiful story.
And by God, he did it. And all that encompassing this really good romantic story, which just once you get to the end and that big disaster happening, spoilers, you feel for these two people, these two survivors. You actually want them to survive. And which I think this really captured not just cinema at the time, but people at the time. And this is why I think this is a better romance Best Picture.
Yeah, I think you guys are gonna hate me, but I grew up watching these movies. Like, this was like one of the first ones I saw with a love story between two characters, and this big event happens where they hit an iceberg. So I grew up with Titanic, and I thought it was a beautiful story to get introduced to it. So.
Okay,
Now-
Castro, as an actor.
Moderator.
He's gonna ask a question. I guess.
No, yeah, I'm asking a question.
Oh, okay.
As an actor, which of the two films have better performances? You think?
I haven't seen The Artist.
You
Okay. Well, okay. I guess that answers a question.
My bad.
Now,
I mean, this is Leo.
Which makes Titanic more memorable.
okay, so I'll give it to you there that as a romance, it encapsulates this idea of these two star-crossed lovers coming together, and this big event happens that changes their lives forever, and it's a big thing. I can argue that the same thing is there in The Artist. There's a person who wants to go in, she wants to dive in and be in the movies. She admires these big stars. She goes in and is just casted as an extra role because she has her spunk to her. And this guy is, the star, the top dog who, during the silent era, if you saw a movie with him, you wanted to jump and go see it. Now, what I like about the love story between them compared to the Titanic is that I think it shows the real tensions, fears, and the complexities of love that are beyond just, oh, I met you, you seem nice, and you seem to take me and save me from whatever life I'm having, and just, that we fell in love.
Thank God you included that.
Yeah. The Artist has that kind of real emotion of, I don't want to get too much into the, I don't know how else to phrase it, but like the feminist perspective of things, but there's this idea of, you see him with this ego that he's on top. He's this big guy who, you know, like, he's humble enough to talk to people who admire him and respect him, and you can see that he even puts on a little bit of show for them. But when it comes down to somebody else, even the person that he loves, starting to top him, starting to take his place, and not only throws him into being like, well, I loved you, but now you're even the person that I'm competing against, and you're the person that, like, I want to love, but then now...
How have I not watched this film? That sounds so cool.
Where do I fit into the picture? Like, you know, and I think...
It's on Netflix, I think.
No, I think they might have taken it off.
Yeah.
You could check. But, you know, where do I fit into the picture? And I think that's something that we can all, at some point or another, either relate to or understand and feel like, you know, when I'm loving a person, like, am I just loving them for what they do to me, or am I loving them for the whole person in general? And like for him...
Oh, Delo, you got fucking real with it, man.
It's still on Netflix, guys. Check it out.
On Netflix. Check it out.
Netflix.
Yeah,
that's pretty good. Eh?
Yeah, like where is my place in this, you know? Because I mean, I can say that at least in my relationship, and that's why I found it such a powerful love story. I've had moments where when somebody grows and they're improving and they're succeeding in their life, and maybe you don't have that parallel in yours, there's a disconnect, and it's like, I love you, but then where do I fit? What do I do? What am I supposed to do? And that this story has that kind of climactic ending to it also. You see him spiral. You see him have to grow past his ego in order to maintain this relationship between the two of them, and also succeed in his own future. And I think that's why it's such a powerful love story. And to think all that was said with no sounds or words, maybe, it's incredible. I can't imagine a better film, you know.
What was that? Maybe?
Yeah. Don't worry about it. Watch the movie.
I do gotta watch it, man. I apologize to everybody listening.
It's a fantastic picture. All four of the contenders, by the way, are fantastic.
All right, Yoko. I jumped off the boat.
Shakespeare in Love.
I get it. I get it. You're that guy who jumped off and then got hit by the propeller, right? Like.
Castro's the guy from Titanic that says, "I have a child," and then he just to fucking get done.
Fine. You're up, Yoko.
All right. I will say, the great advantage for the artist is the fact that it told its love story without sound. It's something very unique that could elevate something that you didn't think about it, right?
Do something different, yeah.
The thing is, we go back to chemistry, and there's something about Leo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, and the way, and their chemistry is just it's just oozing all throughout. Right
That's
from the moment they
Kate
see
Winslet
each
was
other.
kind of like defensive at the beginning, which is very...
Yeah, but you could still see that there's a spark. There is this certain spark on it, which
it's so beautiful, the story
they
of
start getting together. Sorry?
And I love the whole aspect of it's a poor kid, and then she's a rich, and then then nobody wants to see her with him. My bad, Yoko, go for it.
And actually, like that is another take that it is in the artist as well. I mean, he is the rich guy in this case, and then the actress, well, she's a poor person. But in Titanic, they're reversed, right? But it's just this really cool intimacy that they have. Something that ever since I was a kid, like I just remember that it just stays with you, especially the feeling of screwing over all the world, whatever they think they think it's good for you, and you trying to be good for yourself. You trying to listen to yourself and what you feel and what you really want. That is the feeling that I get from these two, and I just remember it so much, especially the ending, the fact that he says, you know what, I'm gonna sacrifice for you to actually live and live your life.
You wanna go that route, Yoko? There was enough room in that goddamn. Okay, go for it.
I mean, it could have been. Yes, there is the whole argument that could have not. At the same time, because of screenplay and drama and all that stuff, you can't really have them both there.
Yeah.
You have to create that sacrifice. Also, what if he would have tried to get up there and the whole thing toppled and then she's on the ground?
Are they really in love? I'd rather, go down with it.
I will give a point to saying that I remember the first time watching Titanic and seeing not only like their love story kind of growing, but then having the boat sinking and things, basically all hell's kind of breaking loose for them. And it's almost like this question of like, is love so strong as to even like guard off death and like guard off, the impending doom that everything else kind of brings? And in a way, the kind of end to it all was that it did that, if not for, I guess, him kind of like sacrificing that little like piece and like letting her kind of stay there, the love would have just died there and then. But because of that, she was able to go on, which I think is...
Because she still saved him.
Yeah.
When he was handcuffed to the bottom.
Exactly.
But I feel what you're saying.
Yeah, and also, especially this movie, just all-encompassing. This was a huge-ass movie. Huge undertaking. And the fact that it was able to tell that story well, the fact that visually, it's still pretty to watch at this time. The re-release, the 3D re-release that happened, it was actually a pretty good 3D re-release. I went to see it and everything, and you know what? I still came out singing out of the theater singing the song.
Celine Dion.
On my man.
I actually like the whole kind of like how they put the real thing of he found the boat, they couldn't get it up, but then he starts telling the story. That's pretty unique. You don't see that a lot in movies. I don't know in the artist, but pretty unique.
Here's a real question.
Definitely, you definitely see how the boat's being built in the artist.
Oh, okay.
No, just kidding.
What's up, Austin?
Here's a real question. Could they both have fit?
We're saying that it was worth the try.
And that's why Titanic sucks.
I mean, they fit in the car, if you know what I mean.
Here's the other real question: will you paint me? Will you draw me as one of your French girls?
The artist does not have.
And boy, did that not spark you? Did that not spark your tingle for a whole generation?
When he grabs the.
I mean,
the amount of VHS is ruined because of too many.
CRs too from so much rewind.
Talk about steamy.
And that's
the thing the artist doesn't have.
But I just think that the
Kate Winslet,
artist, but like, I think the artist, it's not only a fantastic story, but it's a fantastic story that was told in a way that makes us want to like go back and revisit and appreciate that era of filmmaking and the love stories that were told then. Because, kind of like we're talking about with Casablanca, we have trouble attaching ourselves to like those type of stories because that's not what our type of movies and media looks like. It's in color, it's with these crazy shots and angles, and it's fast paced, and it showed us that even in our day and age, even in far what feels like forever ago, to think about like the 40s and 50s and what that era of like either filmmaking or life was like, it brought us and showed us the true human connections and the emotion that could be had within those type of films. So that's the artist. It not only had this beautiful romance that I felt is realistic in more ways than one, but also made us kind of have this romanticism towards that era of films that is now something that was rejuvenated, where maybe it could have been dying in like the 2014s and all that kind of stuff moving forward. So final thoughts: artist, best film of all time. Prove me wrong.
Is it no, Fantastic Mr. Fox is your favorite film of all time, right? But does this break your top 10?
Oh yeah, for sure. Breaks.
Okay, Yoko and Castro, does Titanic break your top 10?
Hell no.
I'll be truthful here. It isn't.
It isn't. Okay.
No disrespect.
How fast is that ship going down? I'm wondering.
But the artist isn't either, though. The artist isn't either in my top 10.
But it's on the Laos top 10.
It's on my top 10.
In the Laos.
It's on my top 10.
Are you telling me I'm not a person?
I mean, for the motives of this argument, no, sir.
Wow.
Castro's like, not with that hair.
Damn.
Okay, any final arguments for Titanic?
But I just want to put in my final argument.
Yeah.
The Artist is a really good movie. I will say that is true. But if we talk about memorable and what will stand the test of time, it will be Titanic.
Oh, that's a closing argument right there, boys.
Yeah, but like, see, the artist sacrificed itself so that way we could remember classic Hollywood. Okay.
I mean, we could watch classic Hollywood.
Carlos, can you tear it apart, please?
I can't. I'm moderating. I wish I could.
Okay, I feel like I gave enough
All
points.
right.
I don't know where else to kind of go back. So yeah,
Unless, you have any other questions, moderator?
is there
No,
like a
I think
tiebreaker?
you both presented arguments. I gotta text Yokomoto.
All right. Well, in that
So
case, Castro, anything else you like to add? Meanwhile, we wait for the results.
I guess Leo was the first time I ever saw somebody like that really inspired me for acting, for sure. Leo.
What about
Even when he's drying her hands, the look they
Gilbert
start
Grape?
giving each other is...
dude, what's eating Gilbert Grape? I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I got introduced
I
with
really need to watch that. All right, so I got the tally in, and here's the winner. Y'all ready? You ready? It is
Yes, please.
Oh, what the?
Titanic. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Let me tell you why.
Recount, rigged election, recount.
Carlos, I don't
I
think so.
let me preface.
Recount, rigged election.
Let me preface this by saying two things. The first thing is we all know that the Tower Crown is about who's arguing what the better film is, not necessarily which film is better. Right? That's subjective, right? So, I'm gonna preface this by saying I like The Artist significantly better. In fact, to this day, my wife hates me because I ruined Titanic for her. Because there's so many flaws with that film. But however,
God.
in terms of the argument, Yokomoto presented three key things Yokomoto and Castro, that served better for the argument. No, believe it or not. Box office was part of it, but I don't think that a film's success is the box office. There could be a better film without the box office, so I don't throw that in there. But technological advancement that advanced cinema, James Cameron has been a top dog pioneer in advancing camera systems, editing systems, everything for cinema. What I can appreciate about Titanic is that he actually took a deep dive to get the footage for the film. I mean, he was the first guy to do it. Not only was he the first guy to do it, he developed the camera technology just so that it could support that
Pressure.
that depth of water.
Yeah.
So that technological advancements was one. Castro presented the argument that the chemistry in the actors. When people say that Ryan Gosling and Emma Stone are like the Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire, I think Leo and Kate are more of that than Gosling and Stone. They've been in 3 pictures together: Revolutionary Road, Titanic,
Oh yeah, that's true.
and another
Oh,
film.
that's also really good.
And every time they get together, man, it's their chemistry is fantastic. I was gonna dock points because one of the biggest flaws I have for argument, and you guys are gonna, I know what I'm gonna get. Leo was miscasted. Leo was too young for that.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Kate looked a little bit older for sure.
Oh, yeah. Leo was too young for that role.
But love is eternal.
But love is eternal.
There's no age in love.
Face is eternal.
Well, anyway, before I get into tearing it apart, because I am, I just want to say that those were the 2 main arguments that I really followed, and the fact that the general audience find Titanic more relatable, more memorable.
Mm-hmm.
However, the arguments that Dalal presented, that it was pretty close. The fact that if you're a cinephile, you prefer the artist, hands down. If you're a cinephile and you appreciate cinema, you see the artist. The technological aspects, the only reason I didn't pick the fact that it didn't use sound and dialogue, which is significantly harder to tell a story, is because that doesn't push our medium forward. what pushes the cinema's medium forward is technological advancements, not revisiting an old system. As much as I love revisiting old systems, it doesn't push our medium forward, which is why I couldn't, as much as I wanted to vouch for that, I couldn't. These two actors, man, you've probably never heard of them. The only reason you've heard of the lead is because you saw him in Wolf of Wall Street as the Swiss banker.
John
yeah, that's him. That's the same guy. But that's kind of part of the reason why I like it more. I'd never heard of them. They were quote unquote unknowns to me. And now it's like, oh my gosh, they were fantastic.
Yeah.
You know, the chemistry, talk about chemistry. That was one of the reasons I was going to side with that. So yeah, those were kind of, and the fact that the biggest argument you had going for you, Lau, it wasn't the tension or it wasn't the conflict within the characters, though. That's very important. It was the fact that this film made a ballsy. This film is not an American film. Okay, it's not.
It's actually more of a French,
It's more of a French picture, and they had the balls to do something Americans would never do, is to make a silent picture in the modern era and have an Oscar campaign for it. Okay, so I mean, it won Best Picture, and I think it won Best Director, if I'm not mistaken, that year too.
Yes, Best Director, Best Cinematography, if I'm correct, Best Actress.
I think
Best Actress, Best Score.
Yeah,
it won a lot of stuff.
It won a lot of stuff. So I think that that's something that Americans wouldn't have done. And it, like Delao says, the biggest argument is that you had classic cinema honored and revered and almost like revisited in the artist. And it's not something that everybody's casually doing. I feel like biopics can take the route of Ed Wood, or they could take the route of, I don't know, the walk the line, you know? And if you take the walk the line route, you're modernizing a picture for modern audiences. If you're taking Ed Wood, you're shooting it in black and white. You're shooting it in Hollywood, on location, in sound. I mean, there's just more reverence just reverence to cinema that way. And I think it's if it wasn't for the artists, I don't think pictures like Mank would exist. You know, so yeah, that's why Titanic won. That's why Titanic won.
In my honest thought, The Artist is a better movie. I have found more appreciation for the Titanic than what I used to. I used to just think it as a silly romance, but in later years I started appreciating it a bit more. There's more stuff to it and stuff like that.
You have to honor. You have to honor Cameron. Yeah, you got to watch it tonight, dude. You have to honor Cameron for his advancements. You have to honor Kate and Leo for their contributions. But I have very many gripes with Titanic, man.
Why?
The dialogue is soap opera worthy. The dialogue. It's bad dialogue, dude. It's so bad.
James Cameron is not a screenwriter.
Yeah, James Cameron is not a screenwriter, and he wrote the screenplay.
Good ideas.
Man, I like it.
The dialogue is bad. The moments between the characters, there's very cringeworthy moments between them two.
Name one.
Partly it's because of the dialogue, but the other part is because of their looks. I don't know. When they're doing the dancing scene in the bar, that's the biggest problem I have with this film. It's a cringeworthy moment, but let me tell you why. Kate Winslet,
that black fucking beard.
Kate Winslet's character. This is how I view her. This is because of how the dynamic of the story is structured. Kate Winslet's character is just somebody who wanted to slum it with the poor people in order to gain some how do I put it?
Life.
Not just a sense of life, but a negative connotation on like later I'm going to tell this story to my rich friends is when I slummed it with the poor.
You can see that she's having like a tough time with her mom. She wants to venture off and being I'm a nice rich. So she's trying to venture off like, I could do this with him. I like him.
But that's my point. That's every rich person. They want to slum it so that they have a story to tell that's different from their rich. You know what I'm saying?
I didn't take it from like this. I think I just like for her it was just like I'm tired of this rich life. Not like I want a story to tell.
Did she let go of the rich life?
No, she didn't. He dies and her life goes on. She marries a rich guy, and it doesn't. It was a story to tell for her. You know what I'm saying? And that's the biggest gripe I have about it. Let me put it to you this way:
it was a pretty big event for her to tell. Like,
let me throw this monkey wrench in there. If the film started off with
The boat sinking.
with the boat sinking. No, if the film started off with Winslet's character bumping into him on the street as he was asking for money, then I would see more depth in something like that, because it's just the guy that
she overcame.
Yeah, she overcame her rich sensibilities of like poor people are not important. You know,
she met Leo, and then that's how like, oh, okay, this guy can draw. He's kind-hearted. It wasn't like, you know what, this is an adventure. Let me see.
I will say, she does look bratty on that scene that you're saying, Carlos.
Yeah,
it does look like a brat. But as the story progresses, you can see that she generally has.
Let me put it to you this way: Leo's character is always likable. He's always likable, but Winslet's character has many moments where she's completely unlikable.
I agree.
And
which is good.
If you're gonna make an audience fall in love with each other, you don't want to make one of the characters so unlikable that you start to discredit anything she says. You know,
that's what I'm getting at. Where like
progression, though.
She's even getting annoyed of how she's like, I'm becoming like this, like my mom.
Yeah,
that's why they show those, so you can see that she's kind of like, I'm tired of this.
I don't know. I think Titanic is a whole nother episode. We could get into that, but for now, that was the Tower Crown. Any closing thoughts, guys, on Casablanca or on any other films?
Citizen Kane is better.
Citizen Kane is better. We'll talk about that when Mank comes around, sir.
Oh, but any last thoughts?
Go and watch it if you haven't already, and it's okay if you like it or don't like it, because that's what watching films is about.
Well, I appreciate that, Delo, reminding the audience that I didn't see it. I appreciate that.
No. Casablanca is a staple in cinema. No matter who you are, you have to appreciate its history. You have to appreciate the story and the precedent it's set for future stories to tell.
I like Bill Russell, man, but I'm not seeing his games.
But it is a peculiar taste. Yeah, I will say that.
Yokomoto?
Yoko?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid to explore more than what you're used to.
Nice.
And this is one of those movies that if you wish to explore more, why not something that's from those times that brought us to here.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and just to kind of help close out things, if you enjoyed this episode or other episodes, please like and follow the new Tower Podcast Network page on Instagram.
We got big.
Please, yeah. Again, thank you guys for listening in on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to podcasts. And thank you for checking out the YouTube and Facebook elements. We enjoy doing this a lot. If there's a film that you want to suggest, again, we're always open to suggestions. Next week's episode,
maybe Cable Guy,
maybe Cable. So we're out of time for Cable Guy. Next time, yeah, there you go. Next time on the Towercast, we're going to be talking about Klaus. So make sure to be on the lookout for the Tower Crown debate. We're going to be doing a Christmas episode with Klaus, a fantastic animated picture. It's awesome. Check it out so that you can listen to this episode coming up. But thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate you guys. Keep watching films. Keep collecting Blu-rays and home media. If you're Eric, then you collect VHSs. But keep collecting home media because it's what aliens are going to watch 100 years from now when we're not around. So,
exactly.
All right. We'll catch you next time.
Take care,
Play
guys.
it again, Sam.
Bye.
Play it again, Sam.